So you have your first patent granted. What's next? Hello and welcome back to Invent Anything. This is John Cronin. This is part two of the series. So if you missed it, part one, you might want to take a listen. In this episode's the combination, we're taking you from getting your first patent to actually turning it into a real business value, covering strategies, decisions, trade-offs, and all those things to show you how you can take this asset and build value, maybe protecting things further, monetizing or scaling it. So from mindset to execution to future forward, this is your roadmap that you can take to make sure your patent just doesn't sit on the wall. Make it work for you.
Inventions keep the world spinning. From fire and the wheel to today's high tech, inventions power change. Turn your inventions into reality. Learn how to get your ideas to market. This is Invent Anything with John Cronin.
So in part two here, coming up for topic number 7 and 8, we'll discuss customer vendor brands and deals, therefore, that you can do. We'll talk about using your patents as leverage in these transactions, tightening NDAs, getting ready for willful exposure, willful infringement, making customers, vendors, IP in a direction that you can have real advantage, building connection IP. We're then going to move from the customer vendor brand raising value to actually raising money and what investors can think about. We're going to talk about the bookcase of how investors think about your IP and how to use your patent or patents to raise the valuation, crafting a clear story, and using things like freedom to operate and different things like that to ensure that you've got your white space, that you've done your benchmarking, and you can position your patent as good business housekeeping that drives a really good investment. So stay tuned. So topic number 7, setting up to do deals for customers or vendors or just enhancing your brand. One of the things about setting up for deals here is that you can leverage your patents very easily in transactions and deals in different ways without being sort of strong arm. Simply mentioning that you have patents is important in a deal. Putting it on your website, putting it on the product as a label, talking about it in the industry, talking about that you have inventions that now have patents. Use it as a real brand issue that you're the inventor. Now note that we can use it with customers and vendors, etc. And one of the things about using patents is if you take a look at your non-disclosure agreements, you should divulge that you have patents because what that does is it helps you start the willful process. If you divulge in your NDA that and here's my patent number as the basis for what you own, this helps you. So use it in your NDA. Use it on your products. If you have software, make it part of the GUI that opens up somewhere on it. Just show patent issued or whatever. Stamp it on the product or on the process. Label it. Marking always helps. And do you know that you can do patent pending as well as patent issued? So even when you file a provisional, you can do labeling. Another thing about customer and vendors, etc., is study your customer or your vendor's IP and see what they have. Look at their product and services and try to invent connections between your patent or patents and where they're headed. That connection makes your patent even more valuable. Another thing you can do with customers and vendors is to try to create these new connection IP so for your customers or vendors that actually get them to want to license or to do a deal with you. In other words, sometimes when you have a patent and then you can improve your patent and help the potential customer, sometimes the patent that you get in your customer space might have them come and buy your product or license because now you've added IP that they're going to need no matter whose patent, no matter whose product is going to be bought. So if you have a copycat or someone close to you, you can get a patent in your customer space, having them want your patent, but having them have to take a license to this improvement patent you did. One of the things is to try to expand prior art around your patent to poison the well. We talked about this earlier, but in part number 1, but you can go to episode number 22, prior art for invention, and you could see what the journey is in order to create prior art. See, if there were like 6 wells in a desert and they all had fresh water, anybody could go to any well. But if you had fresh water, in your well, but for some reason the other five wells are all poisoned, then your well will be more valuable, the water coming out of it, right? So the question is, can you on purpose poison the well for somebody else? Well, for customers or vendors, if you put enable prior art directly in around your invention, that stops them from getting a patent. Yes, they can practice it, but you might do it in such a way that they need your patent and have nothing to trade with you. So this prior art for invention is a really important aspect. So take a look at that episode. Another thing is you need to create a customer story. We call it an IP story. So in episode 24, you can go see what that story is about, how to do it based on the business, the market, the product, the technology, and connect your patents to their business, to their market, to their products. And by doing this, you create a lot more value for your patents. Another thing is defining trade secrets that enhance the patent value. In episode number 11, we talked about using trade secrets to do exactly that. So your know-how, added to your patents, added to the prior art, become a way to really make the value of your patent much higher. So another thing to enhance customer and vendor value is to make sure you market this on your website with press releases and things, and try to get it so that they see you as, quote, the inventor or the innovator of the space. Marketing yourself as an innovator you can do without patents, but when you market yourself as an innovator with patents, it's interesting. The patent office has no dog in the fight, meaning they don't really care about your company. They only are going to be that badge of honor to say that you were novel. And finally, one of the things to do with customers and vendors is to tell your inventor story. I can't tell you how many times when we licensed or sold patents that getting the inventor to do a 2-minute video on the story behind their invention to bring the personal side of your patent or your invention to light, the struggles you went through to actually do something, how many prototypes you had to make, how many no's you took, how the creative spark happened, what the personal story was. That adds to the value. So don't be afraid to tell the inventor story behind your patent and put that on your website. People love to hear the stories of inventors. Why should they hear yours? So let's go to topic number 8, setting up to raise money. This is the most way to get instant value, for patents, because you'll actually see investors become the reason that they want to invest is because of your patent, raising money, setting up to raise money. So I have a little story about a bookcase of investors that I tell my clients about all the time. So I'm going to share that with you right now. So I have worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies helping them raise money. It's one of the big things that my firm IP Capital does. So we start thinking about building an IP story for investors. We've come to find out over the hundreds and hundreds of transactions we've been part of, some investors will not do a deal unless they see a good patent position. As a matter of fact, a big part of our business is investors calling us saying, we need you to help them build 10, 20, 30 patents. It's great business for us. We love to help companies grow their patent value. Investors like this love patents and will add a higher valuation and do a deal much more quickly. On the other side of the bookcase, if you start talking about patents to the investor, they think that you are basically spending and wasting your money because those investors haven't seen anything that actually made any money with patents. So you got this investor bookcase. They don't teach patent valuation in business schools, okay? It's not something that investors know how to do. They can't even read a patent or a claim and understand its value. They don't have those skills. The attorney basically can read the patent and tell you legally what it is, but the patent attorney and the investor struggle trying to figure out the real business value of it. So what do? I mean, some investors will see a patent as now that I got a patent, if the company doesn't do well, I have an asset. Some investors see patents as, at least they did that work, so I know it's novel in the market because there's nobody else that got the patent. Other investors may see that you might have some freedom to operate because you've studied prior art studies. But as you go from the left-hand side, which is I don't believe, to somewhere on the right-hand side, where I really believe, it turns out that the reason why the investors never made money on something that had a patent is the serendipitous nature of this. The fact that you have patents doesn't mean you always make money from having patents. But you can convince investors that you're valuable by telling the investor story. Another thing is, one of the things we found is you need to use your patent story before the investor sees you or sets a valuation. I have never seen ever an investor improve their valuation or decide to do a deal if the patents were introduced after they looked at the deal. So you better get this story and, and thinking right before you talk to the investor. Another thing to raise money and to improve your position is develop a good IP story. Telling that story to investors is really important. Inside the story, outside of showcasing the investor's story, the inventor's story, is understanding how your patents connect to your acquirers, business and market and products. Telling your IP story is more than just doing that, though. It's understanding the IP in the space. You have patents, but what about how your patents different than all the other patents in the space? So adding some IP analytical work to show how your patents are actually different than the patents in the space, et cetera, et cetera. Another thing about raising money is to try to articulate to the investors what the patent covers technically. If you could put your patent in layman's terms, they'll connect your patent with value. If you can't do that, then they probably won't. So this is a big deal to try to explain your patent in layman's terms. I don't have a podcast on this, but I think I should because it's a unique skill. Another thing is raising money is to compare your deal to competitors that have been sold in the space based upon the patent basis. Like figure out that hockey stick I talked about in part one about the number of patents in a deal versus the M&A value in the deal. Another thing to raise money is build around your patents by leveraging on top of your patent to enhance it. File provisionals and get trade secrets in place and building a whole story around your patents. You can leverage your patent to kind of a higher level if you've done freedom to operate that you're not going to get sued. Plus, you have patents to stop others from copying you. So doing both the freedom to operate and evidence of use will up the value. Another thing to raise money is to leverage the patent office's office actions. You see, when you get a patent, as you know this as your first-time inventor, you had to work with your attorney to go through the objections. You could take the patent examiner's objection and turn that into part of your story. So you can take your investor through why you are novel. And that adds real credibility with the novelty and utility that you had around your competitors. Adding a slide or two to your investor deck on that. Link the fact that you're now in the patent club into the business strategy. It shows that you're sophisticated, that you can expand your business, market, and product with this other business tool called patents. And then finally, leverage patents as sort of a good housekeeping, right? In episode number 43, we talked about the patent poison pill. By just getting a patent might eliminate huge amounts of problems in a business. So try to leverage the fact that this is good business practice. So coming up, our final section, topic 9 and 10, where we talk about unlocking hybrid value. This is to combine one or two or three of the ways of creating value together, like licensing that you use to fund the flywheel of litigation, or do an M&A, and then using that as a way to leverage sort of locking in your customer to deals to help get the M&A done. Maybe your customer becomes the acquirer. And then we're going to look ahead. We're going to talk about how the patent becomes a sentient being with agentic AI powering all this automated patent stuff, auto valuations, auto prototypes, business plan generation, discovery, micro licensing, evidence of use chasing, all these automations added to your patent in the patent system. Boy, the fact that you got a patent, you may not even know that you're going to be part of this wonderful AI future. So stay tuned. So, topic number 9, hybrid valuation. It makes sense to do value creation by using hybrids of some of these ways that I've talked about. So, for instance, if you license to make money, that becomes the basis for having like a flywheel to invest in litigation. If your patents read on many, many different companies, you get licensed to some and then use that money to help you litigate. As a matter of fact, licensing to some creates the sort of pro forma value that your patents are good enough. So it might help the litigation. Another thing to do is have a litigation-backed licensing play. Quietly prepare for evidence of use and enforcement and get ready to do that. And maybe that positions you for licensing. So you see how to use these two together. One of the things you could do is kind of you work with customers and try to lock them in and then use that as a way to then embed your patented technology into their workflow to increase your value. And that may lead to further licensing plays in your ecosystem, leveraging the customer and licensing. You might be able to signal M&A with strategic patent filing, then using citations and press releases and things like that to move in to get an acquisition to be, much more able to happen, having the giant come to you. Another way to kind of think about this is to combine vendor control with brand. Use your patents to kind of control the vendors in the supply chain while marketing yourself as a category inventor. That allows you to kind of add price and value to your product, but also limiting the cost of your supplies from your vendors. No better way to license, a vendor than recognizing that, you know, by selling to you, you can reduce the price, but also you could charge them a license to sell the supply to somebody else. So you're getting a double value there. Another thing to do is look at copycat pressure and use that kind of as a revenue conversion. Maybe you take a copycat and basically start making a drive towards enforcing, but maybe at the end of the day, they pay you a license. Because maybe as a copycat, you can move away from them and they still have a license in the older technology. Another thing you might be able to do is create an investor story that you can then fuse with any other compelling narrative you can think about for the investor, like an M&A or a licensing play, etc. So you can craft sort of a narrative that the patent gives you many different market opportunities, field of uses, and that your story in licensing is the ability to generate another revenue generation. So they invest in a product and revenue, but you have a secondary revenue source through licensing. The use of continuations we did talk about as a strategy, and continuations, if they're written correctly, can give you this continual set of patents coming out of the initial filing. And what that does is it allows you to get into different situations from the one patent. Another thing you can do is take your patent and product and combine them in such a way that they loop back on each other. So you have some product or prototype tightly tied to your patent to demonstrate the real world use. But when you do that, you can then have continuations on other improvements of the prototype. So you have like a prototype with the patent, but a second version of a prototype with a continuation, and show that these multiple versions of prototypes and continuations, it's like almost a mini business within a sector of a prototype. And then finally, we talk about freedom to operate. By conducting a freedom to operate study with inventor rounds, you can be defensive because you can get around somebody and have freedom to operate, but you can continue with other patents to carve out spaces that you can license and enforce. And that's the best of the best, is to have evidence of use against entities, but also have freedom to operate against the same entities. So let's jump to the last topic number 10, the future. Your patent as a sentient being. This section probably assumes you know something about AI. I mean, you might know about ChatGPT, and you can write a set of prompts and then save them and run that group of prompts again to do a specific action. Let's call that an agent. So let's say I have a specific agent to take a transcript of a video and turn it into a to-do list. You could write another set of prompts to take the to-do list and to have it create a set of calendar invites to make sure those to-do lists go on a calendar. So that's a second agent. So you could have a third agent that calls two agents to work together. First do the transcript and then put it on my calendar. Separate little agents. This is called agentic AI, the ability to call agents in. And agents can be very complex or incredibly simple. When you think about your org chart of people, they perform different operations. And a frontier company, which was noted a number of years ago by IBM, that you take your org chart and you figure out what functions can be done with an agent. So today, in fact, agents are now the name of the game. We now have this technology called OpenClaw. which allows you to create agents internal to your own workspace. So anything you could do within, say, the Microsoft or Linux regime, you can create your own agents to run internally. And I have this going on all the time. I can have my claw open up my email, read it, and do things that I used to have to do by myself. So agentic AI is now the norm. Once we learn about large language models and agentic AI, the next thing we learn is the corpus of information will really put guardrails on the quality you get out. So let's go to that transcript, right? Getting my to-dos from the transcript is really a good way to use the LLM because it's only using the corpus of the transcript. If you ask an LLM a basic question, it's going to use the corpus of the internet or whatever you tell it to search. So corpuses mean a lot, and to guide things to do it precisely. Your patent now, what is it? Your patent is an invention, an idea, which is usually of a utility patent, an apparatus or a system. It could be a method or a computer method. It could be a recipe, a menu. It could be a composition of matter. It could be a business model. But it's defined, right? It's an invention. The patent is a 20, 30, 40-page document, at least. That's a very specific corpus of information. So let's take that corpus of information. So supposing you would take your patent and develop an agentic AI where you said, every Friday, take this patent and the claims and go off on do a search to tell me if someone is violating my claim and report back to me the company's name, the URL of the link, and why you think. But the more you know about evidence of use, if you really had our prompts on evidence of use, you do a 10 times better job doing this. There is no product in the market we see that does this. We call it the elephant EOU chaser. And we were doing this 4 or 5 years ago. And we still do it today. But using AI is really the way to do it. So your patent becomes issued, you turn this agent on, and it's as if your patent is running around trying to find value. The patent was an idea, it's a goal. The agent's helping it achieve that goal. So isn't your patent with this chaser technology, isn't that a whole agent by itself? And isn't it almost like a being that has an idea and it wants to find value in the world? And you can go on and on with this, it could be nutty idea. But adding agentic AI to your specific patent is a whole new world. For instance, you could have your agentic AI with your patent figure out patent valuation. And let's just say something happened in the market. Some company bought another company and decided to go in a new direction. If you ran your patent valuation based upon that change in the market, all of a sudden your patent value is going up. Imagine if you did that every quarter for your patent. You could have an investor story that says, my patent started here in value. In over 3 years, every quarter, you could see its value increasing. All that information is able to be extracted and used as the pro forma underneath it. You could do that. And I can tell you could do that because I know you could do it. But once again, knowing how to do patent valuation, understanding the guardrails, understanding, I don't know how many prompts we have on patent valuation. You just can't get a ChatGPT to do this stuff. I mean, it will be like garbage in, garbage out. Because the corpus of the patent is right, but the corpus of the other stuff is not very specific. What happens if you want to use an agent to use it as the basis for creating a prototype? We've already done this. We take a patent and we can use it with Claude, and we can create the piece of software from the patent itself, prototype creation. There are companies right now that are working on, and we're working with some of them, to take that patent and use it to drive a 3D printer. Use it to drive a mechanical Turk between DigiKey and a mechanical printer to essentially get things that actually operate. In the future, your patent will actually be put into some system where the patent gets created as a product. One of the easiest things to do is to use your patent as a automation to create a business plan. Why not? Again, if you have a good corpus of what a business plan is and the patent, you have a business plan. What happens if you do the business plan to then create the prototype to then do some of these other things? Do you know that you could build an automation here to go out and find patent groups. Your patent is one patent that the AI wants. It sees another patent that it wants. It puts three or four patents together, creates a business from it, approaches the individuals that own the patents, say, how would you like to do this, do that? And then what happens is a business is formed by the AI agent whose goal it is to run around trying to put patents together in a business. By the way, there are people that do this for a living, trying to buy patents and put them together and create businesses out of them. Why can't the automation? Why can't the automation alert the inventor on new patent builds? So new tech becomes, shown. Your patent says, hey, I think I could build myself better. Why not have an AI that builds the patent based upon the new technology? Why not have an AI that works with the patent office, gets it through? What would happen if your AI used your patent to go find a business partner to want to invest? What would happen if your AI took the patent and kept using this iteratively to improve itself, to find evidence of use, to improve itself, to improve the evidence of use, and back and forth, continually creating more value each time? What would you do? And this exists, by the way, of creating from your patent, extracting out the trade secrets and saving it, or creating the prior art and enabling publication around it. When you do all these things, you sort of think about the patent being a sentient being whose value becomes more and more and more and more valuable every day. And that's today. Think about it as recursive learning, and think about it as more corpuses become uh, uh, ability to connect to. Think about it as the AI becomes faster. Think about it as the AI can connect to other agents to do anything. Your patent becomes the ability to drive some idea into a market by itself. And all you have to do is have the agents to do it. So having your first patent is a big congratulations. Knowing that it has this kind of future is just mind-boggling. So let's wrap up. In topic number 7, we talked about setting up to do deals for customers and vendors. We talked about using it into your NDA, willful exposure, using it for marketing and labeling, using it for studying counterpart IP to find real connection points for negotiations. We also talked about layering it into value creation, building that connection IP, expanding prior art to poison the well, crafting customer-facing IP stories, improving trade secrets, and also building sort of the inventor innovator for real market weight. Remember, the patent office has no dog in the fight. Topic number 8, we talked about setting up to raise money. One of the best ways to get real value is the perceived value of the inventor bookcase and how to play your patent into that bookcase. We talked about the IP story, the way to translate your tech into real value. Get your patent in layman's terms to put that in your story. Use it to drive the market. Stack the leverage by not only having free to operate, but evidence of use. Have a license or two, maybe. Show your investor that there's more value than just the product revenue. We then talked about the hybrid, how to pull, say, licensing and litigation together, or how to use M&A to drive, customer value, or vice versa. We talked about the compounding plays of customer lock-in and then doing licensing, or copycat to get them to take a license, or how to have this whole loop where the patent and the improvements improve each other, improving more of the white space. So topic number 10, we talked about your patent as a sentient being. Look at the future here. Your patent is already part of this, whether you know it or not. And it could be more of a part if you decided to work on this. We described agentic AI and gave a little introduction to that, but talked about how the AI can be an automatic patent watch. It can automatically update its value. It can automatically create a prototype. It can automatically create a business plan. It can find patent groups to build together. It can even find partners or potential licensees. It can find new opportunities. We touched on you can have an evidence of use chaser. Elephant IP is what we called it. And where the evidence of use chaser will build new patents to make the evidence of use even better. Basically, by building this value out, as soon as your corpus of patent is issued, gives you the legal right, all these other AI agents that you either can create or you can partner with can take that first patent and move you to a wonderful future. So congratulations on your first patent. Hopefully this whole set of podcasts, part 1 and part 2, gave you a lot to think about. If you need to call, send me a direct message or email. Love to talk to you about it. This last part about the agentic AI and your patent, if you don't know this, at least this is the beginning of this discussion. Your patent has been born. The idea is something that you own. You've created something. 20 years ago, half of this stuff, you would never create the value in. Today, you can create the value, but now today, since you did it because of agentic AI and OpenClaw and all the rest, you are now in a future that all of us together are going to try to kind of surf together. We don't know where it heads, but I firmly believe that it's going to head in a really beautiful place. So congratulations again. And let's stay connected and hope that this future we're thinking about allows you to really profit for the time and the risk you took to get your own patent through. So please subscribe if you like this and come join our blog, Invent Anything, and listen to our new series coming up on Inventors at Work. John Cronin, Invent Anything.